Okay, in this short video, I want to quickly explain how I'm going to work through the following videos to explain what has to be written next at this point in our writing. We've been focusing on writing a research report at an academic level of citation, documentation, and proof development. And we've written the topic in which you've introduced your general topic and your narrow specific focus. We've brought in a review of literature so that your reader can get background of what other people have written about your topic or areas connected to your topic. And you've tried to focus on major voices in that review of lit. Then you've produced a thesis, voice, and synopsis section, all right, where you tell your reader up front, this is the big point I want to try to prove, and in order to make this stick, there are a couple steps I have to work through, a couple of minor subordinate points that support the thesis, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4. You list them off in sort of a list fashion, or more like a outline that's couched in a paragraph form of the big point, which is your thesis, and then the major points you're going to have to develop and support and explain and situate so that a reader can then understand, given these points, the thesis makes sense as a whole. So that would be your thesis and your schematic. The schematic is basically giving your reader, from this point on, this is what the rest of the writing looks like. This is how it's arranged. These are the things I'm trying to do in the individual paragraphs or parts of the rest of the paper, and they all relate to my thesis this way. So the schematic sort of is the map for the rest of the paper. And in this section, you've also tried to establish a voice in saying, here's my thesis, here's my schematic. Now this work is unique to me in these ways. This is how I'm making a contribution to the review of literature I've provided. So those are the parts that all of us have written to this point. Now we have also done work in defining key terms, at least one key term of this project. So if you want to insert the definition of the theme we've been working on, whether it's, say, postmodernism or communication, or what is postmodernism, what is communication, this would be a good time to work in that definition too. All right, figure out where it needs to go, where it needs to be positioned. But right after this work, which is probably going to be close to like the first third part of our paper, needs to come, or even the first half, needs to come. The next thing that needs to come is the proof section, all right? And the proof section is where you look back at your thesis and schematic and say, look, there was my big point, and then I told my readers I'm going to have to work with these other 4 or 3 points, subpoints underneath it to establish that thesis. The proof section is where you go and you actually expand upon and develop those other points, those subpoints that together, those supporting points that together make the thesis, become believable, possible, and probable. This is where you bring in the data and the detail. Now remember back on how to do summary. We've discussed how to do summary in this class, or in these works folders that we've done. And one thing that I've stressed is that summary is where you just focus on the main points, and then the big point those main points support. All right, the thesis and its supporting points. You don't include a lot of detail or specifics or data in the summary. All right, you just sum up the basic structure of the argument. It's here at this point of the paper, after your thesis and voice and schematic part, where you come in and you actually expand and provide the data and the detail for all those points you said you were going to do. Now's the time that you actually do them. Okay. And this is the section I'm going to call the proof section. Now let's just make sure that I'm not talking about incorrigible proof. Incorrigible proof is proof that cannot be corrected upon. It is so self-evident or so strictly developed that no one can actually disagree in good faith and with good reason. So the very high standard of say mathematical proof is not something to be pursued after for us. We're much more in line with the soft science method of just providing enough reasoning and logic and definition and data and explanation so that the thesis becomes, in the mind of your reader, a sensible position, a reasonable position. All right, and if it starts becoming more and more probable in the mind of your reader, that's fine. All right, but you shouldn't try to think that the proof section is where you absolutely have to convince your reader, because some people are just going to walk away still not convinced because they don't share your presuppositions. So I'm using the word proof in a soft sense, more like support and data and material that actually establishes your thesis as a possible and even probable interpretation. And after that, you need to close up your writing in an exit section. All right, so we will also discuss exit strategies in the rest of these videos. Now, see, a lot of people are going to call this part that I'm talking about now, the exit part, they're going to call it the conclusion or the summary or the closing. All right, I really don't want to use the word conclusion, although that is in use, because I'm trying to keep that term to mean thesis in our dealings with each other and how I've tried to teach this whole method. So I'm going to call it the exit. All right, and this is where you just wrap things up. And there are some strategies to do that also. That's what's ahead in this video collection.